We are live, and it is Friday, and what a week it has been. I'm Natalie Bensavenga, and all of you certainly know Desmond Price of Independent Thought. How are you doing?
It really has been quite the week for the
Yes.
news, Natalie. I mean, a little bit of a head spinner, but we're not
Mm-hmm.
going to just focus on what's obvious on everyone's mind right now. There's actually
Right.
plenty of other stories that deserve our attention. So we're going to go through
Mhm.
the little rundown here for what we have today.
Yes. So, I mean, to kick things off, we are going to be talking about the hottest breakup of the year. Elon
Yeah.
Musk and Donald Trump are no more. I don't know if you've been hiding under a rock, you might have missed this, but whoo, the timeline, the situation, the gossip, it's been great. And I think we all needed a little reprieve from the heaviness of the news cycle. And I think just the memes that came out of this the past 48 hours have really been just life-saving for me. So we're going to
Yes.
dish about it, but we're going to talk about what's really going on or what we think might be actually behind a lot of this and what's there still to be concerned about. And then we're going to be talking about the Senate is now open to cutting Medicare waste. We're going to get into what that means in the budget bill and really how did we get here, because this is very, very concerning. And then we're going to talk about a specific story, another reason that we should not be cutting Medicare, Medicaid, and why we should be expanding healthcare for all. As a 22-year-old recently died after not being able to afford his asthma medication. I think it went from like somewhere around $70 or $90 all the way it skyrocketed to well over 500. And we're going to talk about just the criminality aspect of a country, the richest country in the world, not having healthcare for all. And then we're going to end. This is kind of a healthcare heavy episode because we're going to talk about abortions, and emergency abortions specifically will no longer be covered by Medicaid or Medicare. Birthing people, I guess you're just out of luck. So this seems to be the sentiment of this administration is, gee golly, too bad for you. But we're going to really kick things off to start, Desmond, with the story that has been on top of mind with
Right.
everyone. And so can you kick us off a little bit, or would you like, actually, I will. Let's talk a little bit about this timeline. So it's been a wild 72 hours, guys. Okay. When you first heard sort of the tweet around the world that this was all starting to fall apart, before we get into the actual timeline here, Desmond, were
Yeah.
you surprised that it took this long for the honeymoon period between Donald Trump and Elon Musk to implode?
You know, I'm not surprised, but I wasn't really anticipating it.
Right.
To the sense that I mean, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, there's two huge personalities. I mean, it's not like surprising to see them kind of go at each other's throats like this.
Sure.
But I guess to me, I always assumed that if something like this was going to happen, that it would, maybe we'd see it coming more. I mean, it feels like it kind of came out of left field a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, Elon Musk was supposed to leave the federal government at the end of May. That was
Mm-hmm.
always kind of known.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the only thing that we can really see so far is that they took out some tax credits that were going to go to Elon's businesses in his ugly bill, and now all of a sudden those tax credits weren't going to be in the bill. Like, was that really the thing that set off Elon to kind of go like scorched earth on Donald Trump? It felt a little out of left field, Natalie. That's all I'm saying right now.
It did feel a little out of left field, and I want to just like run down the general timeline as we're talking about this implosion in the White House. So this was from CNN. So June 3rd at 1:31, Musk's posts that the massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination, and he says to everybody, "Shame on you if you voted for this. Shame on you." And then June 4th, in the middle of the night at 2 a.m, he then claims that the budget bill would defeat all the cost savings achieved by Doge, which we now know after people have done their homework, there really hasn't been much cost saving at all, comparatively speaking, to what we have lost. And then Trump really got into the mix. He posted an image on Truth Social at 1:59 in the afternoon saying that Musk was leaving the government, and then Doge, that was sort of like a thank you post, sort of. But then by June 5th, yesterday morning, Musk said that he claims the majority of Republican voters want that budget bill trimmed down, and he confirms that. And then it just kind of it goes off the rails from there. Musk shares old Trump posts criticizing Republican lawmakers for raising the debt ceiling. And then Trump starts a video in the White House in the Oval Office saying that he's not really sad to see him go. But then it really started to get off the rails. And this was where I was just like, ooh, it's really taking a turn. And this one was at 12:46 p.m. yesterday, where Musk says, without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House, and the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. Such ingratitude. Say what? Say what? Wait, what? Did he kind of just sort of almost admit that perhaps there's a reason that Trump is in the White House? Did Elon kind of give the quiet part and say it out loud? Like, that's when I think things really started to escalate. And then the solar bill, the EV solar bill incentive cuts and bill, that was like what you were saying, Desmond. It's going to increase everything. And then he starts talking that we need a new political party. Oh my gosh. And then there is a comment about Trump. The reason that the Epstein files were not released fully is because Trump is in them. And Elon Musk basically confirms that. And I can go on and on and on and on. But the drama, yes, surfied, no prenuptial. Yes, exactly. Like these are just, the claws are out. These two men are upset with each other. Like you said, Desmond, we're not really sure what was the catalyst. But did you anticipate this level of fighting over social media? Like two high school kids, like
it's so messy. It's so them. You know, like it's just it really is. I mean, when you have Elon Musk, who's supposed to be like the richest man in the world, he's out here like, oh, the reason that, the Epstein files weren't released is because Donald Trump's in them. And then he like signs it off being like, have a good day, Donald J. Trump. Like, this is just like, some people were calling this a distraction. Yeah. And they're like, oh, don't talk. Like, it's such a distraction, so on and so forth. I'm like, you know what? We have the ability to stay on task, and we are going to. And also, like watch these two people crash out at the exact same time, because I haven't had a whole lot of things to laugh at recently. I mean, let's be fair here. This is just diabolical. What Elon Musk is doing right now. I mean, basically just calling him a child predator in front of the entire. The tweet had like 150 million views. I mean, to watch all of these people who were like worshiping Elon Musk and worshiping Donald Trump, to seeing the whole conservative ecosphere having to essentially like go into a giant fight yesterday. You have Cat Turd fighting Alex Jones. You got oh my God, you have like Tim Pool getting into spouts with like Candace Owens. Like it's all beautiful. Okay. I think we all kind of like, we've always seen the Republicans and their whole right-wing propaganda sphere being in complete lockstep. To see them actually divided down the middle and taking shots at each other, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. Elon Musk saying that Donald Trump should be impeached and J.D. Vance should take over, and then J.D. Vance not saying anything. That was something.
And let's be real. It's like mommy and daddy are fighting, and JD Vance is just like hiding in his room upstairs. I was dying. And just to go back, surfeited. Thank you. I'm sorry. I could not see the full thing, and I was mispronouncing, and it means overwhelming. And that is for sure the feeling and the energy of this moment. It's an overwhelming feeling of like joy. Something I haven't experienced in a long time. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, but we are allowed to take a moment here and acknowledge that when you have basically the two biggest egos in the world working together for a prolonged period of time, I knew this was going to happen. But what concerns me, and what I do think is of interest, and what people are now speaking on a little bit more now that we've had the dust settle and we've been able to take our popcorn and enjoy, is the fact that JD Vance is really quiet, and is the fact that Elon is now calling for Trump to be impeached at the same time that Trump is, saying he's retweeting or whatever, that people are saying he should be deported. But when we're talking about now impeachment,
Yeah.
that's a really big word to come out of Elon Musk's camp, his mouth, right?
Yeah.
Because to me, if we want to get a little conspiratorial here, I think there are some powers that be that might be okay on the Republican side with Musk leading a charge for him to be impeached. And what frustrates me is that Donald Trump should be impeached for all the, we talked about them the last time we were together,
Yeah.
Desmond, all the hundreds of reasons, not because a billionaire is calling for it. And why now? What's going on? And then how would that work? Because if people think we're going to let, our foot off the gas just because Trump isn't in office, then they're not paying attention to how deep this all goes. Whether Trump's in power or not, all of these people in power right now need to be removed. And to me, that's a much bigger conversation. JD Vance would not be a better choice. He might be a different choice, but he's still
Right.
towing the line for the billionaire class. We're not going to see anything different if JD Vance and Trump are removed because of Mike Johnson. Right. So I do think we have to be careful here. I want to see this whole regime topple, not just the top guy, but maybe this is how it has to start.
You know what? JD Vance is somebody who I think was picked because of his connections to the tech industry, right? Like they wanted to really leverage that going into the last election.
Correct.
And so there's no doubt in my mind that Elon Musk would rather have someone like JD Vance, as the actual president right now.
Yes.
But for me, this is the ultimate case. The ultimate case, really. And I'm not going to, I'm going to hold back the sports analogies that are trying to come out of me right now.
No, go for it.
But like when I was, I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. When I watched the Patriots face the New York Giants in Super Bowl twice, this, it felt to me, it was like, why can't both of these teams lose? And that feels like that's what I'm thinking of right now. This is the ultimate. Yeah. Why can't both of these people lose at the same time? Probably won't happen, but like that's what I really want this outcome to be. It'd be great if Elon Musk was prosecuted. It'd be great if Donald Trump was impeached. Probably can't get both of these things to happen, but it's hilarious that they're both calling for these things at the same time. You have Elon Musk calling for Donald Trump to be impeached. You have Donald Trump talking about how he's going to like go after his businesses. Like cutting his contracts, making sure that he doesn't have any more contracts from the DOD.
Yep.
Like, that was hilarious. That was absolutely hilarious. And I was just like, man, I don't know who to root for in this moment. I kind of want to root for both these things out at the same time. I'm a little stuck, Natalie. Just a little bit here. So
I feel that. I think for me, in a weird way, if I had to pick one to topple first, I almost want to see Musk topple first. And here's why. Because we've seen what happens when Trump gets impeached, and it's not much. But if Musk's businesses were to topple, it may give the billionaire class a little pause on what they're doing in this moment. It might send a message, almost like warning shots are fired, right? Yeah. So, because he doesn't have the protection of presidential immunity. He doesn't have any kind of protection. So in that way, he has money, of course, which lends itself to privilege and power, but it's not the same thing as the governmental privilege and power. So in a weird way, I think it would be actually more important for Musk to have to leave with his tail between his legs, because maybe, Peter Thiel or these other people, even Mark Zuckerberg, all of them might have to think, oh, maybe we should rethink this. Maybe this isn't the road we want to go down. I don't know. I'm not sure. I welcome what other people would like to share with us in the comments. What do they think? But I do think that there is something more sinister happening beneath the surface here. And there is a reason that they had a falling out that we're not yet privy to. And I do think it will come out in the wash, but time will tell.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, something had to have set this off, and I'm sure that we'll probably see a little bit of a power struggle here going on. Yeah. Elon Musk was just out here in my state of Montana meeting with a bunch of billionaires at some giant resorts. So who knows what they're actually scheming behind the scenes here in my great state, unfortunately, where they seem to made a home for themselves now. If I had to guess, this is just a guess, I think a lot of people are truly, the business community are probably truly worried about Trump's tariffs.
Yeah, they should be.
Musk himself said that he thinks that the tariffs are going to cause a recession before the year's over. And it's one thing to be like, oh yeah, well he said something that I agree with, so I mean, like, like I'm definitely going to be behind that, But truthfully speaking, it's kind of hard to, wonder how they wouldn't do that. At the rate that
Right.
this is going, if they do stay into effect, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you are taxing like some of the basic goods that people get on a day in and day out basis. There really isn't going to be a positive outcome for that.
No,
Everyone who's looked at this has said that the ultimate conclusion of these tariffs are going to be increased cost of living for everyday Americans.
that's
And
right.
so on one hand, you can be like, oh, Elon's just, taking shots at Trump because he's feeling petty and he doesn't like him, so on and so forth. But the math does math here. And I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of these billionaires, are probably looking at like how much money they're about to lose because of Trump's tariffs, and they can't understand why this is going forth. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
there is, we are getting into conspiracy land right here, but maybe there
Right.
is some people trying to figure out how they can put pressure on Trump to back off of these tariffs. And maybe this is one of the strategies they're deploying by dividing his base of support. Elon really kind of nestled his way in there, and now maybe he thinks he can take half his support with him and kind of weaken his position here.
Yeah, and they're not like, I think when you have that much money, obviously they're not at any risk of going broke,
No,
right? But I
no.
think this just becomes about power and prestige and measuring who's
Yeah,
bigger than who, right? So for them, it may not be life or death at all, but it may feel that way. Um,
true.
but these bills do have life or death impacts for
Yes, they
real
do.
Americans. And I know we wanted to move on and talk about that as well.
Yeah, we do. We have something here from NBC News. This was talking about Senate Republicans wanting to cut Medicare now. So
Mm-hmm.
we had been talking before about the attempts to cut down SNAP benefits by $267 billion, the attempts to cut down Medicaid by $700 billion. But we had heard reports that they wanted to come after Medicare as well. That was being disputed a little bit. No longer so the case being disputed. Now we have something on the record here from NBC News. They say here that they were looking for ways to pay for their new sprawling bill because the debt and the deficit have now become a main, conversation sticking point for Senate Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
So Republicans are exploring ideas of how to slash waste, fraud, and abuse. We'll get back to that in a second. In
Yeah.
in Medicare, several senators on Thursday said that Donald Trump has blessed their pursuit.
Mm.
So
Mm.
this is a quote here. I think that anything can be, and then gave a little bit of a pause. That's
Yeah.
waste, fraud, and abuse are open to obviously discussions. This was said by the Senate Majority Leader of the Republicans, John Thune, out of South Dakota. But I will say that they're not all really in lockstep right now. There are some
Right.
senators who are dissenting, some familiar dissenting voices. We have Josh Hawley here, Republican senator from Missouri, who said, quote, "What a terrible idea.
Mm.
We should not be
Mm.
touching Medicare." He said he's recalling that trying to cut retirement spending has burned the Republican Party in the past. He said, quote, "In 2004, President Bush got reelected and promptly tried to privatize Social Security, and Republicans didn't win the popular vote for 20 years. So if you don't ever
Mm.
want to win an election again, just go fiddle around with people's Medicare that they've worked hard for, paid into."
Yeah.
That was the end of the quote.
Mm.
Um, yeah, we're having a lot of weird moments here today, Natalie, because I'm enjoying watching Republicans fight each other, and I'm actually finding
Yes.
myself in this particular moment
Mm-hmm.
agreeing
Mm-hmm.
complete with Josh Hawley.
I
You know
know.
what?
Was that on
That's
your bingo
amazing.
card for
That's
25?
amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, because he's absolutely right. It
Yeah.
has been a third rail in
Mm-hmm.
American
Mm-hmm.
politics to go after Medicare.
Yeah.
Like they believe heavily in their propaganda, Natalie. They
Yeah.
believe in it like it is like a lifeblood for them. They believe that as
Mm-hmm.
long as they frame this as waste, fraud, and abuse, it will give
Yeah.
them the cover to do anything. As long as they say that whatever they did was going after waste, fraud, and abuse. That'll give
Right.
them the cover to cut anything that they want to and get this bill down to a spot that maybe is more attractive to the other members of the Senate here. But let's just be really clear about what they want to do here.
Yeah.
They want to take away benefits from people who have access to Medicare so that they can give more money to billionaires. That is the cause and effect of all of this. And
Mm-hmm.
it's disgusting. There's just
Mm-hmm.
no other way to frame it. I mean, there's plenty of other ways to frame it, but they all fall into that same basket.
Yeah. I think it's criminal. I mean, I would take it a step further. I just, I think it is absolutely criminal. And in the way that we frame this conversation really pisses me off too, because we always talk about these things as entitlements. And I think that word is incredibly misleading. We all pay into these systems. We've got to stop acting as though people feel as though, oh, if we call them entitlements, then people will more easily understand why those people aren't entitled. Because it's always a worthy versus unworthy conversation. And for whatever
Right.
reason, the rich are always worthy of everything good happening to them. And everyone else, the other 99%, are just a bunch of lazy bums, right? That you're not entitled to anything. You have to work hard for everything. And I really think we've got to flip the script and get this out of that frame and start talking about universal health care is a human right. A housing is a human right. Having food is a human right. I think what they've gotten really good at is making us look at these things as aspirational. Well, someday maybe I'll be able to get that cancer treatment if I just work hard enough. Someday maybe I'll be able to retire if I can, save enough money, even though I'm making a minimum wage salary, and I'll never be able to probably save anything, right? So they've done this good job of making things that are guaranteed in other countries seem aspirational, and that is now a part of this mythology that is known as the American dream. And it makes
Yeah.
me sick because, when I think of what's coming down the pipeline with AI, and how
Mm-hmm.
everything is about to change in the next 5 to 10 years, and people aren't prepared for what is coming.
Yeah.
We really need to be talking about universal basic income, because all of the things that we discuss right now are all connected, whether
Yeah.
it's healthcare, housing, food, insecurity, all of the things. What I don't understand is we're making advancements in technology. So why are we not becoming why aren't we having the opportunity then for more leisure time and more joy? Why is it we're making more room for technology to take over things, but also we want you working in factories until you die? I think collectively as a civilization and as a society, we have to figure out what we want from the people that are creating these products that they are expecting all of us to use and pay for. Because if it's not going to make my life better, if it's not going to make the little old lady that lives up the street with her little dog and her caregivers, if it's not going to make their lives better, I'm
Yeah.
not sure why I should be buying into this. And I think we've got to start asking ourselves that same question. Why? And I think I had this conversation today with some friends actually. America won't talk about the big elephant in the room, which is white supremacy. White America would rather cut its own arm off than black and brown people get anything. And I think that is what's continued to prevent us from having healthcare in this country, paid leave in this country, a living wage, all of these things. It's, well, those people shouldn't be entitled to those things. And it comes back to framing. And we're in this together. We're going to sink or swim together. And I think it's time that we have a real comprehensive, hard conversation about how race in America has really splintered us to the point now where we are all pitted against each other. And instead of looking up at the 1%, who we should be fighting and standing together in class solidarity, we've all created these splinters that their corporate owned media has perpetuated and propagated onto us. And it's created so much infighting and who gets what crumb of what cookie, that we're not realizing that they're holding 99 of them.
Natalie.
I know I took us down a road, but welcome.
Natalie,
it's Friday.
I'm going to say what I was about to say. I want to go back to the framing of entitlements for a second, because I think about this a little bit differently than you do.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to maybe get away from that word because it has a bad connotation to it. I think that there is a framing that, you can just leave the word in there, because I don't think that entitlement has to be a bad word. At the end of the day, you're entitled to Medicare because you've been paying into it your whole life. You're
Mm-hmm.
entitled to that service because it's a service that you have been working for your whole life. Every single check that you've ever had, you've been paying money into Medicare. Every check.
Okay, but what if there are people that can't pay into these systems because of their own situation? Are they
Yeah.
not entitled to healthcare? And that's where I get
Yeah.
concerned with continuing to use that word, because it still creates this commodification of this system where I
Hmm.
still think you exist, you deserve healthcare. That's
Yeah.
where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think
Yeah,
everyone should have access
of
to
course, I
universal
know
health
that.
care.
Yeah,
So, I mean, like, that is something that, like, I would never personally run into. But
right.
I guess for people who are thinking about this, I mean, like, these are your benefits. Like, at
Right.
the end of the day, these are your benefits. That money should be going to the beneficiaries. When they say they're going to be cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, do they ever stop and say what the waste, fraud, and abuse is?
No, and they never will.
Right. I mean, like, if they were truly on the up and up, right? If they were
Mm-hmm.
actually trying to go after, programs that weren't operating correctly, or money was being allocated where it wasn't supposed to be, if they were really trying to make these things more efficient, they would directly say what that was.
Yeah,
They would point to where that money is going, where it shouldn't be
that's
going.
right.
They
That's
wouldn't
right.
be they wouldn't be telling you, hey, just trust me, bro. Just trust me, I got this. Like, they would
Mm-hmm.
definitively show you, like,
Mm-hmm.
what it is that they were trying to reduce. But they don't do that. And you have to ask yourself why. Had Republican like trolls coming into my comment sections
Mm.
about these all the time. And it's fascinating to me how many of these people legitimately believe that the Republican Party is actually trying to save the earth, or trying to actually help the American people.
Sorry.
Like, that
Mm-hmm.
is that
Mm-hmm.
is mind-boggling to me that you would
Yeah.
actually believe that.
Yeah.
We have had their political framing essentially in place for the last, like, 40 or 50 years now.
Yep.
Every measurable outcome for the average American person has been going perpetually downhill since then. I
Yes.
don't know how much more evidence you need that their economic plans aren't actually beneficial for all of us. The
That's right.
proof is in the trajectory. I mean, just think about it for yourself. I mean, it is, what was it, 20 years ago? I mean, it was, how much easier was it to buy a house, to go to college, to actually go on vacation, everything that you can think of. Everything just keeps getting more expensive. Everything keeps getting more out of reach. And you want more of this type of politics to continue? Makes no sense
Yeah.
to me. No,
Yeah.
I see this as nothing more than just their way to frame this conversation so they can get away with what they've always wanted to get away with. They want to
Mm-hmm.
privatize Medicare. They want to privatize Medicaid. They want to privatize Social Security.
Yeah.
These are the steps they're going to take to get there.
Yeah. 100%. And I want us to drill this down even further, because our third story does talk about the actual impact of what these policies create. Because while we never understand, the benefits of cutting fraud and waste, we do understand the real life and death impacts that happen when people cannot afford healthcare.
Right. So this also came out of NBC News. It's a 22-year-old named Cole Schmidnick. I apologize
Mm-hmm.
if I'm mispronouncing his name here. So he tried to get a refill on an inhaler that was prescribed to him by a
Yeah.
doctor to prevent asthma attacks. The
Mm.
medication had formerly cost him about $70 at his local pharmacy where he lived at in Wisconsin. That price just skyrocketed basically overnight to $500. He wasn't able to afford it, so he ended up leaving the pharmacy with some medications, but not the inhaler that he needed. And basically, 5 days later, after that, he had a severe asthma attack, stopped breathing, and he collapsed, and he never regained consciousness. He actually died. The doctors who called his time of death attributed his death to his asthma attack.
Ugh. It
So
just, it makes me feel all the
I, I,
feelings
sh-
at once.
I shared this story on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing I said on there was that I was tired of having this debate, and that I was tired of, having conversations like this where we have to relitigate again and again and again and again why it is so important for us to have universal health care.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get more into my feelings about all of this here, but I
Mm-hmm.
want to open up
Mm-hmm.
the floor to you first. What were your thoughts when you first heard this come down the pipe?
To me, this is what I always say. This is criminal. This isn't just immoral and unethical. To me, there's a real criminal element to this. I mean, there is so much blood on these people's hands and the system's hands. And, you know, I've been working in the space of healthcare for all for a long time, volunteering in different in ways, and I've heard countless stories of people over the years talking about the suffering, the unnecessary suffering, and the unnecessary death that has happened to them and to their family and friends because they simply did not have the money to
Yeah.
gain access to either medications or procedures or just doctor's visits, right? And how things got worse and worse and worse. And somebody just needed, a medication for their foot and they couldn't get it. And then they went septic and lost their foot. So it's like this is what I mean when we're talking about everyone deserves and needs healthcare. Okay, we can look at it from a personal perspective, but from a societal perspective, we are not a productive. If we care about capital and productivity, if we want to turn it around and face
Yeah.
it that way for people that don't care if people live or die, well, we
Yeah.
can't be productive. We can't work if we're ill all the time, if we're dying, and if we're sick. So to me, it's like for all the reasons this story broke my heart, but when I think about it as just a human being and the idea, like, this is probably why I could never work in a pharmacy, Desmond, not that I am one, but if I was, because I
Yeah.
would be like, don't tell anybody, I'm just going to give it to you. Like, I would get fired in a day because I wouldn't be able to stand by and watch that kind of an injustice, because to me, he should absolutely have walked out of there with medication. And if he
Yeah.
couldn't pay for it, there should easily be a government fund that says, hey, this kicks in if you come and say you can't pay for it. And if you can pay for it, it's because it's like $10. Nothing should cost any medicine like that that's so common. Are you kidding me? Are you
Right.
kidding me? That's the other thing that I find really sick about this is, why did this medicine suddenly jump in price? What was the reasoning for that? Why was he not notified? Why was it $70 to begin with? When I saw 70, I thought that was a lot. If you work a minimum wage job, that wipes out a large part of a paycheck.
Yeah.
So once again, like, who is this medication for? Who?
Right. So one of the things that I saw further in this NBC piece
So angry.
was that one of the things that they want to do in regards to this story is like, well, maybe what we need to do is like give people like a 90-day notification that the prices are going to go up and not just do it overnight, because that's apparently that's the solve here. That's how they want to fix this problem. It's funny how the solve for the problem wasn't just, hey, maybe life-saving medication shouldn't be priced anywhere near that high, or maybe it shouldn't have a price at all.
Right.
Like this is something that I come back to time and time again. When people argue against universal health care, they always have the same argument, which tells me that they come from the exact same propaganda school. We don't want to have higher wait times. I got to tell you, as somebody who's a part of the healthcare industry right now, wait times are a part of the system today.
Of course they are.
I've waited months to see doctors
Yes.
with really great insurance right here in America, in my town.
Thank you.
They're right there. I couldn't see them for months because they are backed up waiting for patients. Oh, well, the quality of care would get worse. Is it? Okay, ask me this. If there are 73 countries in the world who have universal health care, why are they not all transitioning to for-profit healthcare systems if their quality of healthcare is so bad? Why is it that every single time that the conversation even gets brought up in the UK, for instance, about getting rid of the National Health Service, the country goes into full revolt?
Yes.
Okay, this is a country that has similar political dynamics to us, by the way. It's not like it's just like some liberal enclave. They're pretty split down the middle, liberal and conservative over in the UK. They're all united. They don't want to lose it. Medicare is a really popular program here in America for people who are liberal and conservative. It is essentially, encompassing healthcare for them, like once you get over the age of 65, right? We are talking about just giving that to everyone. A very popular program that everyone already likes, and make sure that everyone has it here. Other countries do it. They're not trying to get away from it. They're not, the wait times thing, that's a ridiculous misnomer. People talk about price. You would end up paying less when you factor in all the costs involved. Yes, you would pay more in taxes, but you wouldn't be paying premiums anymore. You wouldn't be dealing with co-pays or deductibles. People are on health insurance plans now where their deductible is like $5,000.
Oh,
and the
mine's
insurance
$7,800.
companies,
$7,800.
Insurance companies actually have memos out there saying that they put their deductibles in spots like $5,000 because they know that over 90% of Americans never pay more than $5,000 in a given 12-month span.
Right.
Therefore, if they set the deductible there, they know that they'll never have to pay a dime over the course of a year,
That's
and
right.
you'll just be paying your premium to them. So it's just like a giant boon for them. They never give you anything, you just give them money. That is our system.
Yep.
Why the hell would you want to defend that? Why would you want to defend that?
Because otherwise it's socialism. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
the level of propaganda that has been pushed on us is so ingrained in people that they are so afraid of a word that when you speak to them plainly about something, that is the inevitable rebuttal from the right. You're a
Yeah.
communist. You're a socialist, which are not the same thing, by the way, but they don't even know that. So I think this is why we've got to find a way. And I'm not sure. I think having these kinds of conversations really helps because it is not a radical idea for everyone to have health care.
No.
That is not radical. What is radical is a 22-year-old dying because he cannot afford a $500 life-saving medication and he was allowed to leave to die. That's what happened. They said to him, basically, we don't care. You can go die.
Yeah. Can I speak on this for a second?
Sure.
Natalie, because give you a personal thing really
Mm-hmm.
quickly here.
Mm-hmm.
I had thousands of dollars of medical debt that I could not pay back.
Mm-hmm.
When that happened, that money went into collections.
Mm-hmm.
When that happened, my credit score tanked. When that happened, I was unable to leave the apartment that I was in because my credit score was so bad that I couldn't actually apply to get a new apartment because my credit score just said I was a terrible person, essentially.
Right.
And I was stuck living in the same place for years because I couldn't find a place that would even accept me to take me in because my credit score had tanked because of collections from medical bills. And I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't work as much as I needed to because I was still dealing with an ongoing condition that was never fixed when I actually first went to the doctors in the first place and was trying to get this all addressed. It is a massive domino effect. And that all
That's right.
comes from getting sick and then not having the money to pay for it. And it had repercussions throughout my life. I was having my bank account garnished. Like money that I was going to use to pay for the rent was just taken straight out of my bank account to pay for these collections. So I had to stop using my own bank account to make sure that my rent money wouldn't be stolen from me.
Oh my
It
God.
was an absolute nightmare. I had to ask a friend if I could use their bank account to keep my money in it for a little while so I wouldn't have my rent money stolen from me again for these medical bills I couldn't pay. It is a nightmare what will happen to people when
Yeah.
you do not have money to actually pay for being sick. We
Yeah.
don't have to live in a society like that. There are so many other countries that have already figured this out and they have implemented universal health care. We don't have it here because the medical insurance industry, the pharmaceutical industry, has paid so much money to our politicians that they
That's
have
right.
convinced people that they can't have something that millions and millions of other people around the world have.
That's right.
And we don't have to listen to them anymore.
Amen. I'm really sorry that you've had that experience. And unfortunately, you are one of millions of Americans.
Yeah.
And to the point where the Biden administration, one of the things they were going to do was decouple that medical debt from impacting your credit score.
Yeah.
And I believe it was since reversed by the Trump administration. So once again, cruelty is the point of these policies, keeping people in poverty and forced to constantly pay and pay and pay so that this 1% can become that much richer. That is criminal. And we will never see change. I truly believe this unless we overturn Citizens United, because that is the beginning. That is one part of it, of dealing with the campaign finance reform that is so desperately needed. Because to your point, all of
Yeah.
these politicians have been bought and paid for, whether it's by the NRA, whether it is by big pharma or big healthcare. I mean, I live in Pennsylvania and we have two insurance providers here on the western side of the state. It's either UPMC or Highmark, and that's pretty much it. and they've created their own little kingdoms here, and they don't pay taxes, and they're basically creating real estate, holds for themselves. And
Right.
my mom was a nurse there for many years, and they tried to say that they had no employees, that they shouldn't have to pay for the nurses because they actually didn't have any employees because they were a nonprofit. Like, this is the level of sadism that these large corporations are doing, and they have loads of lawyers and loads of money, and you literally have two choices in Pittsburgh if you want healthcare, and they're both terrible. So we have a monopoly here, hence why we're paying premiums that are far above what we should. And so
Right.
on every level, whether it's your own personal health story or whether it's a collective situation, this healthcare system does not work for us, but it does work really well for the people in power. And I think in order to deal with this, we've got to grab it by the root, because trimming the little leaves off, it's not working.
Right. The very last thing I want to say about this is really short
Yes,
before we
of course,
transition to our
of course.
final topic here. Um, as we are going into a new election cycle, and we are thinking about who is going to be representing the Democratic Party in 2028, I have said and will continue to say just how important it is that we have somebody who actually believes in universal health care, because there's going to be dozens, and I mean, there'll probably be at least like 25 or more people who run for president in
Right.
2028. So it's not like you're going to be like locked into like one person or the other. You're going to have choices. And when you have that choice,
That's
I just
right.
hope that most people will not get behind the candidates that want to continue to prop up these industries. You want to be we want to be going after and endorsing people that
That's right.
actually want to directly challenge the corporations and the billionaires, not people who want to do everything they can to be on their side. So please just remember that when the time comes.
Amen. Like Tim Walz said in a recent interview, we're never going to win another election if we don't guarantee healthcare for all.
No.
Like, that's just truth right there. You want people to come vote? Give them healthcare. Give them the things that they deserve so they can survive and maybe actually thrive a little. Gee, what an idea. And speaking of healthcare and things that make us mad, we're really going to wrap this up with another situation surrounding reproductive rights. The Trump administration, this was from the AP, but it's all over the news. The Trump administration revokes guidance requiring hospitals to provide emergency abortions. They announced Tuesday that they would revoke guidelines to the nation's hospitals that directed them to provide emergency abortions for people when they are necessary to stabilize their medical condition. So what this means is, if I go into a hospital setting as a pregnant person and I am hemorrhaging, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to get essential medical care, meaning abortion, if I need that, to stop me from bleeding to death. So basically what they are saying is they're continuing this same trajectory of cruelty is the point, where they're saying birthing people's lives do not matter. Now, the Biden administration had argued that hospitals, including ones in states with near total bans, needed to provide emergency abortions under the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act, which is also known as EMTALA. This law requires emergency rooms that receive Medicare dollars to provide an exam and stabilizing treatment for all patients. And just to be clear, almost every single emergency room in the United States relies on and has Medicare funds attached to it. So the
Yeah.
Trump administration announced that it will no longer enforce this policy. The move prompted concerns from a lot of doctors, of course, and abortion right activists that people will not get emergency abortions in the states with strict bans. So truly, if you are pregnant in a state with a abortion ban at any level in place, God forbid something happened to you during your pregnancy, it is not a guarantee that you can go to an emergency room and receive care. I can't tell you, when I read this, Desmond, I felt my blood pressure go to a level that I don't recall lately. And there's a lot of stuff that raises our blood pressure these days, but this hurt me on so many levels, because one, the Republicans are constantly hammering on about life and the preciousness of life. But it's like, you can't say that if you actually are allowing birthing people to bleed out in the parking lot and refusing to give them essential health care because it might have to include abortion care. I know so many of my friends that would literally be dead if they hadn't had an opportunity to receive life-saving care because something went really, really wrong. And I don't mean early on in pregnancy. I'm talking close to the end of a pregnancy. This is so cruel and sadistic and truly something that, once again, I guess I'd get my license revoked, because if I saw somebody come in bleeding out, I would just treat them. So it's like, I don't know what they're expecting doctors who take a Hippocratic oath that says they will do everything that they can to preserve life. This flies in the face of medicine. It flies in the face of science. And also, once again, why aren't we allowed to sue the Trump administration for practicing medicine without a license? This is Sandra, I agree. This is disgusting and this is unbelievable to me. Desmond, what did you think when you saw this?
And it gets harder and harder to find the words, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because what is there left to say about Donald Trump? I mean, you just go so many different stories across the board of the things that he has done, either in his first term or now in his second term here. And I don't even want to just put it on just on him, because, I think almost any Republican president will probably have done this in this particular moment in time, because they all seem to be on board with these abortion bans. Like, they're coming down every single red state. They tried them here in Montana. Thankfully, they were blocked by our state Supreme Court. But they're trying them everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so this is a Republican Party narrative right now. They want to do everything humanly possible to prevent people from, I guess, getting the health care that they need. We saw the story in Texas just like a week ago, talking about the police trying to use this sophisticated surveillance tech, trying to track somebody who they thought might have had an abortion in a different state. It is beyond me when we hear these stories anymore. How anyone could take them seriously as far as they're just trying to actually help people. They're trying to do the right thing. No, they are not. They are costing people's lives. They are legitimately costing people's lives at every single turn. Unfortunately, this story is just one of so many right now. We're thinking about the crises that are coming upon this country from just the callous, just reckless nature of the Trump administration. So, when I heard the story, I was hurt, because a lot of people are going to suffer for this. Being a cis man, I'm never going to understand, the fear that comes from hearing a story like this. But I empathize with just the fact that it is just another attack on our rights that we always thought we would have. And now we're all sitting here questioning just what's next? Yeah. Seriously, what is next?
Yeah. And if you have a partner that can give birth, this would be a very scary thing, adjacent to, and for you, right? So everyone really can understand this. And what scares me too is they are trying to override these laws when Montana, for example, is saying, oh, we're going to, solidify it into our constitution. They're actually now trying to override that with more federal legislation. And so whatever happened to the whole states' rights on this issue? That was the whole point of dropping Roe, right? Was take it back to the states. Well, guess what? The states are all pretty much saying we demand abortion access. We demand essential health care.
Even in the red states.
Absolutely the red states. Yeah. And so what scares me though too is I live in a blue state, and it's really purple here in Pennsylvania, but I say blue because we have a blue governor and we hold a very slim majority in the House. But what scares me is there are a lot of laws, and I think they're called trigger laws, and don't quote me on that, but where if a governor that is, a Republican or a conservative were to take place, all these laws would suddenly go up for committee and debate, and they've basically got things locked and loaded. So when the time is right, a Republican governor can sign them into law. And so I think we've got to realize too that when I say Democrats aren't going to win an election unless we get universal health care, that includes codifying Roe v. Wade into our United States Constitution as basically an inalienable right that we all deserve essential healthcare, and that's the foundation, because we could talk about all the limits that they put to access to abortion care, even with Roe in place. It wasn't like this was this magical time. There were a lot of restrictions put in place, but we at least need to solidify that as a foundation, because the idea that I live in a country where, depending on my geography, I could live or die if I am pregnant, that is unacceptable and unnecessary. And we've once again got some reckoning to do within ourselves as a nation. Who do we want to be? And I know that the majority, because we've seen it over and over again, we want to be a nation that supports birthing people through that process. And right now, we are doing anything but that. This is a mark on this administration, and this is shameful. And anyone who claims to be pro-life and supports this initiative, they are anything but that. And yeah, makes me so angry, Desmond.
No, I completely understand. And it's hard not to be.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's hard not to be. We are seeing, attacks on basically everything that we ever thought, was sacred, like here in America. I mean, like people's access to healthcare. I mean, people's access to public health. We talk about, like what's happening with RFK all the time. Kilmar Brego Garcia is coming home today, but he was kept in an El Salvadoran, slave labor camp for months on end. I mean, like all the things that Doge just cut access to. I mean, the list kind of just goes on and on and on. I mean, Trump in 4 months has upended everything that, people just kind of like took for granted, I think, so to speak. I mean, they have, when we think about what are rights in this country, it feels like every day they are challenging what is a right. And it's a scary place to be right now. And truthfully speaking, I just think that there needs to be a real reckoning in this country. I mean, I don't want to just see Republicans defeated. I want to see them just like essentially pushed into obscurity after this is all said and done. And I don't think that's going to happen unless the party that is challenging them, the Democratic Party, actually fully embraces the things that we are all demanding. True protections from these things happening again, true access to like healthcare. And just, I mean, we just need a party that's actually going to provide for us the way that essentially the Democrats, what they were, I mean, back in the time of FDR. We need that version of them again, not the version that they've been the last few years.
No, I agree completely. Well, everybody, this was quite a show. We touched on a lot of different topics, but really at the heart of all of this, it's really just about seeing each other in our full humanity and recognizing that we all have a right to be here and that we deserve basic decency from one another. And, we deserve the absolute basics from our government, including, healthcare and housing and a living wage. And we should be demanding, my gosh, just that at the bare minimum from our elected officials. The bare minimum. Yeah. Oh, Desmond, if people want to learn more about our work or follow us here on Substack or subscribe, where can they go?
If you want to click on the top of the screen right now, you'll be able to subscribe to both of our Substacks, and make sure that you do that. If you're watching the playback, you will see our links in the episode description. You should be able to subscribe to our Substacks there, as well as YouTube channels. Natalie is on Instagram. Please go check out her Instagram, everyone. We will be back next week with a new live stream, so be on the lookout for that. And thanks as always for being here. Really do appreciate it. Natalie, her ring light stayed on the entire show, so thank God. Thank God. We are really happy about this.
It's all the small victories, everybody. No, I appreciate always being in conversation with you, Desmond. Thank you so much for creating the space for us. And to everybody that joined us, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys. And until we see you next time, please take care of yourselves and each other. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.